think at its heart, the Catholic worker lives the mission of the church by really, living Matthew 25. When you were hungry, you fed me. When I had no place to go, you gave me shelter. By really trying to live those works of the church and to care for the poor by caring for Jesus and to care for Jesus by caring for the poor.
Welcome. Today we're welcoming my dear friend, Meli Barber. Meli lives in Indianapolis, Indiana. And she's a good friend of both of me and my wife. And we went to grad school together at the University of Notre Dame. And Meli is one of the best people I know. So when I thought of people who could talk to you about what it means to live the mission of Jesus, she's one of the first. She'll be embarrassed I'm saying that. But she, what she has done is helped in starting a Catholic worker community in Indianapolis. And she's going to tell you a little bit about what that is and about how that works and how that fits into the mission of the church. Welcome, Meli. I'm sure you would hear a roaring round of applause right now if you were in the classroom live with us, but unfortunately you're not. The first question is, kind of gets back to the heart of our class, which is about the mission of the church. And so, in your life as a lay person, and then specifically as maybe a social worker, and in founding the Catholic worker too, how do you participate in that mission of the church?
I think at its heart, the Catholic worker lives the mission of the church by really, living Matthew 25. When you were hungry, you fed me. When I had no place to go, you gave me shelter. By really trying to live those works of the church and to care for the poor by caring for Jesus and to care for Jesus by caring for the poor. Dorothy Day once said, "I only love Jesus as much as the person I love the least." And she also said, "Those who cannot see Jesus or Christ in the poor are truly atheists." So that's kind of where we fit in to trying to live out that mission of the church.
Wow, serving Jesus directly in the poor. Yeah, I'm sure no one in my class would need a reminder of this or anything, but those are where we get the corporal works of mercy and spiritual works of mercy, but in particular, the Catholic worker lives the corporal works of mercy in a really concrete way. Whatever that looks like, though, that's important to point out. So then, Meli, why did you start? We'll get into the kind of, you can include the how, but why did you start a Catholic worker community or help to start one in Indianapolis? Back 10 years ago now?
Not quite.
Almost.
We'll celebrate 9 years in October. Yeah.
Okay.
So I, like I said, I was first introduced to the worker when I was at Notre Dame, and just going to the Catholic worker and participating in their community dinners and serving over there, which has become just a normal part of my life. It was one of my favorite things that I did at Notre Dame. And so I moved down to Indianapolis and just had this thought in my mind that, like, anything that Notre Dame, not a major city, anything that South Bend has, Indianapolis must have, right? Like, we're the largest city in Indiana. So I just assumed there was a Catholic worker that I just hadn't found yet. The longer I lived in Indianapolis and the more like intentional Googling that I did, the more it seemed like there really wasn't a Catholic worker. A friend of mine from Notre Dame had moved to Indianapolis at the same time, and we had actually met at the Catholic worker. And so we used to talk about, what would it be like if we had a worker? Where would it be? What would we do? What would that be like? And we've been talking about it for a couple of years. And then finally one day it was like, we either need to do this or we need to stop talking about it. Like, I can't live in this like gray imagination anymore. And again, the the amazing thing about the worker is that you don't have to wait for a priest or a bishop to say, we shall have a Catholic worker in this diocese. The worker is a completely lay-led ministry. So anyone, truly anyone, can start a Catholic worker. And so we did. We started off 2011 by looking for a house. To house people, to do hospitality, we needed a place to put them. So at, I don't even know, 24 years old, a friend and I started walking around a neighborhood, looking to see what property was available, what houses we could potentially buy. We were really lucky. His parents really believed in the worker as well. And so his parents gave us a private loan, and we were able to buy a house directly from the bank. Which in and of itself, yeah, I mean, I guess that's a long answer to say, you know, we started the Catholic Worker because there wasn't one. And we both had experienced the worker before, and we felt like there was a need for that kind of hospitality and community, that kind of lived Christian witness in Indianapolis. And then specifically, we bought a house in the neighborhood where I was working. So we purchased a house on the same street as the church where I was the parish director of religious education. Yeah, it's an economically depressed area. It's always been a community of immigrants. The the type of immigrant has changed over the years. So there's
yeah. Wow. So I mean, what I'm hearing is you and a friend identified a need and kind of made it happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think my favorite thing about the worker is you don't have to wait for someone to tell you that you can do it. We literally bought a house, and then we emailed a guy and told him that we had a Catholic worker. He's not like in charge of the movement. He just pays for a website, and then he has a list on his website of where the houses are. So when we emailed him and told him that we existed, he told us that we were the 219th community to be founded.
Wow.
According to his list. Yeah.
Wow, cool. That's cool. And well, so then can you tell us a little bit about what kinds of things the Catholic worker community does, maybe specifically in your neighborhood, and just what is it like?
Yeah. So in many Catholic worker communities, there are kind of full-time volunteers that live in the house, and their whole job is just to manage the community and the cooking and cleaning and just kind of manage all the things that people are going through that have kind of led them to the worker. Our house in Indianapolis has never been like that. We have basically self-funded. We have received over the years some in-kind donations, largely through people's labor for construction projects or renovating the house. But in terms of how we pay the mortgage and how we pay the utility bills, how we keep the lights on, that's generally just people who work. My friend Stuart, who founded the community, and I are responsible for all of the bills. And so because we've always had people who work full time to support the house rather than people that live in the house to support it, we have had to be a little more intentional about the type of hospitality that we do. So we are not a community that generally engages in direct homeless ministry. So we don't generally have people who were sleeping outside who then come and stay with us. Most of our guests have been people who just have some housing instability. So they might have been couch surfing. They know that they're about to be evicted. So they've been housed, but something has happened. We've also kind of had a twin ministry of trying to provide hospitality to young people who want to do good work, but have a lot of student loan debt. We've also offered hospitality to community organizers, Catholic school teachers, people for whom working in their passion job would not have been possible if they were responsible for like actual bills. So in our community specifically, we ask for a financial contribution if one is capable of making it. So most people that stay at the worker contribute somewhere between $50 and $100 a month. And so that would, include all the utilities and things like that. So that just helps us to supplement and make sure that the mortgage is paid, the bills stay on, and we have money for like problems, fixing things, construction projects, all the things that happen in old houses. The Catholic worker house was built in 1910. So it is over 100 years old, which just has its own kind of unique set of problems that we work with.
Wow.
Yeah, so our residents have ranged in age from 3 months to 88. Um, I guess I should tell you more about what our house is like. So we purchased a double and then tore down a wall. So we
Yeah.
were able to open up this house. So it actually has two front doors. We ripped out a kitchen and made it into a dining room. It was a whole construction project in the beginning.
Yes.
But essentially, Anthony remembers.
Yes.
But essentially, what we were able to do is create a 5-bedroom house. So we have 4 bedrooms upstairs, and then we made the second living room into a bedroom as well. So we have 1 bedroom downstairs. And we have many shared rooms, so we can have up to 8 people living at the main house at the time. So we have 3 shared rooms and 2 single rooms. We tried to be really intentional with the rest of our space, having a large living room, a large backyard. We made sure to finish the front porch so people could be outside, because we know it can be hard to have a lot of people living really close together with differing personalities and backgrounds and stories. But we also wanted to make sure that we were able to serve the most number of people possible. So
Yeah. And then you do a bit of feeding people, like with kind of community
yeah,
dinners as well. A lot more people than just the ones staying there
right.
eat.
Yeah. So we do community dinner every Tuesday and have for years. So yeah, it's everyone who lives at the house, and then there are several houses the community. So we have 5 other people, like 5 other houses of people that come over. And then it seems like someone's always bringing a friend or a guest or
Yeah.
someone's neighbor or this person that they met that needs a place to eat tonight. Community dinner is how we welcome new residents to our home. We know that every time someone new comes in, it just changes the whole dynamic of the house. And so we also try to be really intentional about making sure that the worker is a good fit for that person, and that, we're a good fit for each other. So before someone moves into the house, we always ask them to come to community dinner and just spend time with the community so that we can all discern together if this is a good fit.
Yeah.
And your students probably know this as well, but I think one of the things that makes the worker really special and really distinct from like a homeless shelter is that everyone does live in community together. So Dorothy Day used to say that in the best Catholic workers, you couldn't tell who was a guest and who was like a volunteer, because everyone just lived with each other. And so because of just that really intentional way that we live together, we know that we're not the right fit for everyone. Some people don't want to live in community or won't do well sharing rooms, sharing their space, being in each other's lives in that way. So we think community dinner is a really important way to make sure that that we're actually helping people that can benefit from us. We know that we're not the right fit for everyone, and that's okay.
Right. People have different needs at different times, but to those people who are hungering, for more than just a place to stay or a meal, they can find that where it might be harder at another charity, at a regular charity. Yeah. Wow. So then, I think you started to touch on it a little bit when you talked about the emphasis on real community, but what kinds of things do you all have to do to sustain the Catholic worker?
Yeah. So, in terms of what the people that live directly in the house do, we always have community dinner. Those who live in the house have a community meeting as well. And then just a lot of intentional social time. I live in a house in the community now, but I no longer live in the main house. When I was in the main house, we used to drink tea together almost every night. Everyone would get home from work, put on the kettle, and gather around the table. I know, we're like, sometimes I felt like I lived in like a magazine. Like, yes, put on the kettle.
Yeah, a really interesting magazine.
But we would just gather together and have intentional time to talk and hear what was going on in people's lives or people's days. so the people who live in the house still do that. In terms of kind of the wider community of both those in the main house and our whole community and our friends and guests and people that we bring together, we do have our community dinner weekly. We have a monthly larger community meeting where we can plan projects that we want to do together. It's like we planned all of our gardens together. They're spread across many yards, but we tried to have some shared plants so that we didn't grow 700 tomatoes and like no cucumbers. So tried to spread that out. And we do a lot of fun things together. Normally when it's safe for people to gather in the same location, we would have a lot of game nights. We usually have a lot of bonfires. We just have a lot of traditions that have grown over the years. So we always get together on Halloween to hand out candy to the neighborhood children. We always celebrate Easter dinner together. We always have a big Epiphany party to celebrate Jesus and the holidays. Prayer life of the community shifts depending on who is involved at the time. Dorothy Day and the worker don't have any rules about participating in prayer to stay at the worker. So at times we've had a number of people that either were Catholic or were interested in spirituality. Sometimes we've had fewer, but we would never turn someone away, and we would never make coming to church or praying with us a condition of housing. We want that to be freely given. So right now we gather monthly for Mass. So once a month we have Mass in the prayer room in our house right after community dinner. And then there are various other points where we have gathered for rosary. Sometimes we'll have a different, a special prayer service because someone is inspired and they put it together and invite people over. So we're just very much lay-led of how people feel
Got to
called.
go to Mass there a few years ago, and it was something I'll never forget. It was beautiful. It was in kind of a living room, and I think it was a living room.
Yeah, so that was an old dining room. So we converted the second dining room into our prayer room.
That's the prayer room, okay.
It's beautiful. We had a friend that came and did a mural for us. Through working in the church, I knew someone who did stained glass, and so someone designed a stained glass window. We've actually had 2 weddings in the prayer room.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
That
Stuart,
is
my
awesome.
co-founder, he and his wife were married in the prayer room. And then our friend Miranda, who lives up the street, she and her husband were married in the prayer room. Her youngest son walked her down the aisle by walking her down the stairs into the prayer room.
Right. Oh, wow. That's beautiful. So there's a real church building quality to it in an informal way, What kinds of things do you do personally to sustain this kind of participation in the church's mission?
Yeah. This sounds cliche, but I think going to Mass every Sunday is one of the things that's really important and really sustains me. The bishops have said that the Eucharist is the source and summit of our lives. And so I've always felt like really returning to the Eucharist weekly is something that's always been nourishing for me. When I worked at the parish, I would often go to Mass each morning before I started my workday. That's a little less workable now that I have a long commute to a different office, but I've always found that Mass is a really sustaining part of my life. And then on those other days, just making time for personal prayer. So I have a subscription to Give Us the Stay, which is sort of like the Magnificat. Some of your students' parents might subscribe to the Magnificat, but Give Us the Stay is a publication of America Magazine. And I think it sort of intentionally has more of a youthful, I don't want to say spin, but just tries to really find stories, saints' prayers to highlight that might be more appealing to people who are a little bit younger than your students' parents.
Yeah, so you just make sure you take the time to stay connected to God and the church and the Eucharist and the sacraments.
In this whole conversation, Anthony, have we talked about the name of the Catholic worker?
No, we haven't yet. I was going to ask you at some point and kind of got thinking about other things. Yeah, what is the name of your Catholic worker and why?
So we are the House of the Little Flower. So we're named after St. Therese of Lisieux. And I think, that's appropriate and meaningful for a couple of reasons. St. Therese is one of Dorothy Day's favorite saints. St. Therese was known for her little way where she talked about serving Jesus just through, small things like washing the dishes in her convent. There's a popular meme that goes around the Catholic worker world that just says, everybody wants a revolution, but nobody wants to do the dishes. So I think St. Therese, it's really emblematic of a lot of the work that we do at the Worker, which is, yes, participating in justice activities, and there's a lot of dishes. There's like a lot of small things that you have to do to maintain a house of 8 adults plus many other people that come over throughout the week. There's a lot of cleaning.
When I was finishing college and thinking about, well, maybe I'll move into a Catholic worker after I graduate, I talked to someone and, I was thinking about it, and the person who was sort of the point person there I was like, I don't know if I can, I don't know if I have the skills. And she was like, well, can you wash dishes? And I was like, I can do that. She was like, well, then you have the skills. Anyway, I'll never forget that. And I'm glad you brought up the dishes, because it's true. There are lots of dishes.
Lots of dishes. We also, our community was founded and opened October 1st, which is the feast day of St. Therese. So once we identified October 1st as our open date, and I realized it was her feast day, I was just hell-bent that this was going to be our name.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I so wish that the students could ask you questions, but if they have any, I might pass them along to you.
I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Meli, very much. I'm going to let you go, but we'll talk again very soon, I'm sure.